Who is the mother of series protagonist and all-around rubbery guy, Monkey D. Luffy? Well, obviously, we all know it's Crocodile, but I have to make a video about this, so I guess we gotta stretch this out for 20-something minutes, okay? Alright, we're gonna talk very briefly about Luffy's biological mother. The quick answer is, we don't know yet. Is she going to show up in the series? Yeah, most likely. And actually, let's kick this off by addressing some of the rumors regarding Luffy's mother. That sounded like it was going somewhere. But no, really, there's been a lot of debate over things that Oda has even said about Luffy's mom over the years. So I just want to clear that up really quick before we get to talking about his foster mother, as in the person that actually raised him and is for, practical purposes, Luffy's mother, Curly Dadan. I mean, there's no debate. Curly Dadan is Luffy's mom. That is the woman that raised Luffy, all right? Just clearly, authoritatively, okay? But as for some things that the man himself, Eiichiro Oda, has said about Luffy's mom, the first time this is really brought up in any major way is in SBS Volume 44. There was a question that was regarding, in some translations, it's Luffy's parents, like, hey, Oda, please draw Luffy's parents. In the official Viz translation that I have right here, it's specifically, aren't you ever going to draw Luffy's father? To which then Oda responds with, his father? I already drew him. He'll be in the next volume. So rumors kind of became abound with this because, like I said, in some translations, the question was, Oda, are you ever going to draw Luffy's parents? And then Oda responds with, yes, I'm going to draw them next volume, implying that Luffy's dad and Luffy's mom appear in volume 45. So a lot of people have looked at volume 45 and were like, okay, Luffy's mom has to be somewhere in here. Oda said so. No, it was specifically Oda clarified, I'm going to draw his dad in the next volume, and then Dragon showed up, so there it is, okay? Another one that pops up is in volume 78, and in another SBS, and in this one, this is probably one that has been rather contentious on whether or not Oda is saying that Luffy's mom will never appear, his biological mother, will ever appear in the story. I've seen this one SBS gone out of control with the level of theories and people have said about it. So, let me just read this official version here, okay? Here's a question for you, Oda-sensei. Why is it that so many characters in One Piece have mothers who are unknown or deceased? Okay, that's a fair question, because that's not something that's just in One Piece or with Oda. I mean, that's something that's pretty common in, honestly, not just, shonen manga, but, fiction in general. Dead mom or dead parent disease is something that afflicts a lot of protagonists, a lot of main characters. 1 out of every 5 main characters are going to have a dead parent, okay? It's probably actually higher than that if you do a statistic. But anyway, Oda clarifies by saying this. I see. Well, the answer is simple. The antonym of adventure is mother. Please do not write this on an official test. Okay. So Oda says the antonym, as in the opposite of an adventure, is mother. So I've seen, like I said, I've seen that taken to a bunch of different directions, to the point where people have said Oda clarified right then and there, Luffy's biological mother has no place in this story and will never appear. I don't think that's what Oda said with that. I think what he was saying is that if a main character has a happy family and, a mother is there and everything's great and awesome and there's no tragedy, then why would you go on an adventure? Why would you leave your home? I don't know. Ask Ash Ketchum, I guess, because that happened to him. But aside from that, from Oda's perspective, if you have a mom and a dad at home and you're just having a happy little life, then, the impetus to go out to sea and become a pirate on the high seas might be diminished a little bit. Now, you can argue with that, interpretation of the SBS. There's some other stuff out there regarding Luffy's parents, his mom specifically. There's one source, and it's a third-party source, that said that Luffy's mother was brought up in a conversation between Luffy's VA and Oda, and apparently in that conversation, Oda said, yeah, she's not going to show up in the story, but this is a third-party source. This isn't Luffy's VA is coming out and saying this. This was something else. It's oh, this person said this to this, and it's just you can't really be sure. As far as I can tell, Oda has never said anything even close to Luffy's mother will never be revealed in the story. She has no place here, okay? That's never come up, and I do believe she will appear at some point. Now, one more thing before we get to Dadan, all right? And this is something recent that I actually missed. I went back and looked at this and was actually kind of surprised, okay? So, in chapter 1057 of One Piece, so this is at the tail end of the Wano arc, okay? This was right in the lead up to Film Red. And if you remember, in the original serialization of these chapters in Shonen Jump, there were those like tie-ins of Film Red where Oda was drawing little panels of like the red-haired pirates and Uta like having a fun time and just dancing. And then there's other ones with like Uta writing songs, you know, like this is how Uta came up with the name of this song that you see in the movie or you hear in the movie, right? Okay. Well, there was one in particular that had this panel in it. And I don't remember what my original interpretation of this panel was. It might have been, oh, that clearly is Uta's mother. Because this might have been, no, that we knew that Shanks' adopted daughter was Uta at this point. It wasn't his biological daughter. But I was like, oh, maybe that was Uta's biological mother right there. Okay? But if you look at the baby that this woman is holding, and this is drawn by Oda, keep in mind, okay? It's drawn by Oda. The baby this woman is holding is clearly not Uta. All right, because Uta, even as a baby, half of her hair was white, half of her hair was red. Okay, that's just her natural hair color, right? Okay, this baby has black hair, or at the very least, maybe you could say green hair or something, maybe blue hair, but definitely it's not white and red, which is Uta's hair, okay? So this is not Uta, but there is a woman, a grown woman, holding a baby, singing a song. And a lot of people are like, oh, that must be Luffy's biological mother right there. That baby looks like Luffy, you know, and here's a woman singing a song, clearly Luffy's mom. You know what? I'll be honest with you. It holds a lot more water than the crocodile theory to me, okay? So, sure, I'll go with this. If you want to see Luffy's biological mother, this is probably the closest that we have to that possibility. Like, this is maybe her. Like, I can actually see that. Like, and that seems like something Oda would do as well. Like, here's just a random panel as a lead-in to a movie. I'm just gonna randomly draw this character. By the way, that was Luffy's biological mother. This is Dragon's wife, and that's baby Luffy. There it is. Okay, so that's all we know about Luffy's biological mom, and now we're going to go into talking about Luffy's real mom, as in the mom that actually raised Luffy and Ace and Sabo, the stepmother that stepped up. We have Curly Dadan, all right? You know what? Going back and rewatching all those episodes, I specifically wanted to watch the anime because the manga's great with that, but the anime actually added a lot of extra filler scenes there that I think are warranted, okay? Of just Luffy and Ace messing around in the forest and then meeting Sabo eventually and then fighting all of those creatures. They also meet a dude that has Conqueror's Haki at one point. Remember that? There's just like a random guy living on Dawn Island out in the woods and he's just like, hey there, I have Conqueror's Haki. That's crazy, right? It's like, what? It's just like, anyway, they fight a giant tiger at one point. That's pretty cool. And there's a lot of shenanigans and antics with Dadan and Luffy, Ace, and Sabo, which I think works great in this anime context because Ace and Luffy and Sabo did not spend that much time with Dadan until the events of Grey Terminal happened. It was like, I think, less than a year or so when all of that shit went down with Sabo and the Celestial Dragon and then the Grey Terminal burning and then Dragon showing up and all that kind of crap, right? So adding those extra scenes made it really work, okay? So to give you some background here, okay, so Dadan is a mountain bandit. She leads a band of thieves up on top of Mount Kolbo, which is the mountain that is the border area between Fuchsia Village, and then there's the forest in the mountain, and then there's Grey Terminal on the other side of the mountain, and then there's the Goa Kingdom with the giant wall, and then you get into the city, and then the city's broken up into like Edge Town, the lower city, the high city. Okay, so She's been a mountain bandit as far as we could tell for a very long time. Like, Garp definitely has a history with her. And, like, even though she's a bandit and she breaks the law constantly and they're bandits. Like, by your very nature, when you are a mountain bandit, when that is your job, you're going to go down into villages and pillage and steal shit, all right? And threaten people and probably murder people, okay? Yeah, I mean, that's just how it is, right? Now, there seems to be some arrangement, probably Garp made with Dadan, that, like, you don't touch Fuchsia Village. So the mountain bandits that showed up in Chapter 1 that were led by Higuma, he's not part of Dadan's group. He's not part of their band of thieves, okay? He was a different bandit that led a different group, maybe on a different mountain. I don't know how many mountains were on Dawn Island, okay? Maybe there's, like, this big war of mountain bandits, like Dadan leads Mount Kolbo, but then there's Mount Dolbo over there, and then Higuma was on Mount Holbo, and it's just like, whatever, I don't know. But, like, at some point, they were different groups. In fact, I don't even know if Dadan ever even brought up Higuma. That would have actually been really funny if Dadan was having dinner with Luffy and Sabo and Ace, and everybody's like, yeah, that stupid son of a bitch Higuma, my god, I'm glad he got eaten by a freaking Sea King. That guy was stupid. You know, like there you go. It's like, that guy he was never the proper mountain bandit, right? So there's some agreement where Dadan does not come down to Fuchsia, and very well, in fact, Whoop Slap and Makino are actually, like, friends with Dadan, okay? But let's not get this out of the way here. Like, she is a criminal. She has a bounty. She has a bounty that was actually given not by the Marines, but actually by the Coast Guard. We see it in the Vivre Card book, and I find that great. That indicates there's other, like, sub-branches of the Marines. I would imagine the Coast Guard is a branch of the Marines that deals mostly with terrestrial-based crime rather than ocean-based crime, okay? So that's pretty cool. They included that on there, right? So, you know, she has a bounty. I like to think that she probably spends most of her time, though, sneaking into the city, because Mount Kolbo is strategically located right next to the Goa Kingdom, so most of her banditry probably involves maybe going into the high city at Goa and then stealing some stuff from nobles. But yeah, there are probably other villages and other settlements around the Goa Kingdom and on Dawn Island that she probably raids and attacks as well. But they're bandits, okay? I mean, in fact, when Luffy first showed up and he wandered in, he's just like, what's going on in here, huh? Garp is like, yeah, Luffy, go inside and just make yourself at home. And Dadan's like, it's my house. What are you doing? Garp, I'm not watching these kids all the time. This isn't a daycare. And Garp's like, yeah, whatever. I gotta get back to work, Dadan. You have fun. By the way, Luffy's made of rubber. Don't ask. And just leaves. And so Luffy walks in and he immediately grabbed by a bunch of bandits like, hey, kid, you know, how do you wander into our house? You gotta pay. And it's like, I don't have any money. He's like, well, do you have any parents? I have a grandpa. It's like, that's great. What's his name? It's Garp. And it's just like, oh, shit. Okay, all right. And then they're like, okay, well, Luffy's living with us now. It's like, oh, great. We have another one. Okay, because Ace had already been brought there by Garp earlier after the whole events with, you know, Roger told Garp to watch his kid. You know, it's really funny how Garp delegates all this, right? Like Garp goes up to Roger at Impel Down, and they have their last conversation, and Roger's really serious, and he's just like, hey there, Garp, how you doing? I'm Goldie Roger, king of the pirates, matey, yarg. Anyway, I'm gonna have a kid, and it's a wonderful time. I'm gonna be a papa. Anyway, the Marines are probably gonna kill him and my wife, so if you could maybe find them and make sure everything's okay, that'd be great. And Garp is like, he agrees to it, but then immediately takes Ace and just throws him over to Dadan, which is the smart move. I mean, Garp cannot raise two kids while he's a vice admiral and the Marines running around and everything like that. Like, that's just too much, okay? So, you know, it was the smart thing to throw not only Ace, but Luffy over to Dadan. And by the way, this was not even the first thing that was horrible as Garp, raised Luffy. I mean, he threw him into the jungle, and that all happened before Luffy even met Shanks, I think, because Garp was raising him up to be a Marine at a very young age. Like, when Luffy was like 4, he got thrown into the jungle. This is like when Luffy's 7. So his first night there, when they're having a feast, Ace kills a giant boar, and then the mountain bandits are all having a big feast, and Luffy wants to eat, but he couldn't get any food because it's like the strongest get the food, like survival of the fittest kind of thing. And so Dadan has this moment where she's trying to like intimidate Luffy, of just like oh, okay, you little brat, don't think that this is gonna be easy living here. You gotta pull your weight. If you want to eat food, then you gotta work for it. You gotta be tough. You gotta be strong. You gotta live the mountain bandit lifestyle, okay? Don't think about going crying to your grandpappy Garp about all this. The only thing I can guarantee you every day is a bowl of rice and some water. That's all I'm gonna give you for dinner. Everything else is on your own, right? And she's trying to like intimidate Luffy because Dadan does not want to be a mom. She's a mountain bandit. She's like this really badass, intimidating figure to this band of thieves and stuff. And she's got an image to cut. You know what I mean? She's just like, I'm not taking care of you runts. You go out there, you get your food, and you come back and you eat or whatever, or not, or die out there in the jungle. I don't give a shit. So that's kind of what she says at first. Although she can't really do that because Garp would kill her. So she has to kind of take care of them, but she doesn't want to deal with it, basically, right? But Luffy takes it pretty well in stride. First he kind of shit talks mountain bandits. He's just like, mountain bandits, yeah, they're kind of lame. I don't like mountain bandits because of what everything happened with Higama and everything like that. By the way, that is a stance that Luffy keeps the entire time. Like when Luffy eventually leaves Dawn Island to go out to sea, his like last thing is like, okay guys, see ya, I'm leaving. I still hate mountain bandits, but you guys are cool, I guess. Bye. He just leaves. It's like, all right, well, Luffy is nothing if not consistent, okay? Dude, wouldn't it have been funny if after like 10 years, it was 10 years, because he got dropped off when he was 7, and then he was 17 when he left Dawn Island. So wouldn't it have been crazy if after 10 years of living with Dadan, Luffy is just like, I'm going to be king of the mountain bandits. I'm going to be a better mountain bandit than Higama ever was. And then Dadan's like, oh my goodness, he's grown up so fast. Right? Okay. So, this begins a thing where Luffy is following Ace out into the jungle like every single day, and Ace keeps trying to like shake Luffy's tail. He keeps like throwing giant like boulders and cutting down trees and rolling logs at him, and Luffy comes back to Dadan's place beat up every night. And Dadan's worried about him, but more worried at that point about like Garp like killing her or punishing her rather than Luffy's own well-being. It's like if Luffy gets killed, this isn't going to be good for her, okay? So she's like, ah, crap, right? But you know what? Like I said, go back and watch those episodes, even the ones that are mainly filler, because it is rather endearing, and you really feel for Dadan, okay? She had to raise not just Luffy, but Ace and Sabo. She had to raise those 3 kids for several, well, okay, in the case with Luffy and Ace, several years. Sabo was only around for like a few months, and then everything happened where he got taken by his dad back into the city, and then he got, we thought he was dead, and then Dragon took him into the Revolutionary Armies, but like at least Luffy and Ace for several years. Okay, that woman's blood pressure has to be like critical mass, okay? And you even see a scene where she's like smoking cigarettes, like she's always smoking. But then when Luffy and Ace show up and their shenanigans are amplified now because there's 2 of them, she just starts like chain smoking like crazy. Like she goes through a pack an hour. She's like, oh, man, God, this is ridiculous. These stupid kids, they're causing hell for her. They're wrecking her house and they got to clean it up. And there's one scene where they clean up the whole house and they're like, oh, it's looking good. And then Luffy and Ace, and they throw him in the bath. They're just like, you clean yourselves, you stupid brats. And then she like shuts the door to the bathhouse, goes and cleans everything. And then after that, the kids run out and they make a mess out of the whole room again. And Dadan's like, okay. There's one episode where she's like, okay, you know what? It's nighttime. They're finally asleep. Dear God, they're finally asleep. This is the only time of the day. Keep in mind, this woman is a hardened criminal. All right, this woman has been a mountain bandit for decades, probably. Okay, and she has seen some shit. All right, she has killed people. People have killed people she's known. She's gotten into tough fights with people before, where she's probably been left bruised and bloody. The life of a mountain bandit is not an easy one. And the most challenging thing by far, and it's not even a question, is raising Luffy, Sabo, and Ace. All right, right? So she's going to bed, and she's like, oh, finally, peace and quiet. My dreams, the only place I could be happy anymore. And you see an image of her when she was much younger, okay? Because she was a very beautiful woman in her younger years. You see her there, and then you see, like, her frolicking through a flower field, and then Luffy and Ace show up in the dreams and, like, ruin her, and then they fall on top of her when she's sleeping, and they wake her up, and like, ah, come on, damn you, why? All right? Oda actually did do some sketch art of Dadan. So there was two initial designs of Dadan. Well, rather, the top one was the original design of Dadan. He was actually used to be a guy, and he was like this pipe-smoking old dude that's like, yeah, whatever, Garp, I'll watch your kids for you. I'm kind of glad. I mean, it's a unique design. I think it would have been cool. But at the same time, I'm glad Oda went with, like, a middle-aged woman mountain bandit. I think that works better for, like the purposes of comedy, sure, like I've just said, but also the idea of what's going to happen next with the Blue Jam Pirates and Dadan's, like, shining moment in the One Piece story, okay? Might have been able to have something similar with this pipe-smoking dude right there if that was the Dadan that he went with. I'm sure it would have been fine. Like a wizened, kind of wise elder kind of dude that's just like, Luffy, what you gotta do is you gotta stretch your arm like a pistol, and you gotta punch the rock. And then Luffy's like, okay, like, maybe you could have done something like that. But I like the idea that Luffy at least had a motherly figure in his life now because of that, all right? And the other image that Oda drew was Dadan as we know her, but in her younger years. So she was a lot more, you know, intimidating back in the day. So I like to think in her early years, like probably when she was like in her 20s, she became a mountain bandit. And she's been doing this for several decades now. I think she's in her 50s when Luffy and everybody meet her. I think she's in her 60s right now. Actually, let me double check on that really quick. Yeah, okay, so she was actually 43 during the flashbacks with, like, when Luffy and Ace were kids, and now she's in her 50s. She's in her mid-50s right now after the time skip and everything, okay? So, yeah. So she had mountain bandit for a while. Because Garp was also raised in the Goa Kingdom and, like, around Dawn Island, probably what happened was that she was causing a ruckus around the villages, and maybe she did attack Fuchsia at one point in her younger years, and then, well, Whoop Slap was maybe out of town that day, because Whoop Slap would have kicked her ass, but, like, you know, at some point, Garp shows up. Garp is a good second when it comes to, if Whoop Slap's not available, Garp can, I guess, pick up the slack there. Garp probably showed up and was just like, hey, what are you doing, mountain bandits? You can't be wrecking this town. This is my town. And then, you know, Dadan gets the crap beat out of her and her whole crew get wiped out by Garp. But maybe Garp was just kind of like, you know what? I can't be always here to protect this village, so I'll make you a deal, mountain bandits. You make sure that no other mountain bandits attack this town, and we'll be squaresies, okay? Also, I might need you to, you know, do some daycare for me in the future. Dadan really didn't have a choice in the matter. I feel like, I mean, eventually there was some camaraderie between Garp and Dadan, like they were old, like, friends and stuff like that, like drinking buddies kind of a thing. But at first it was probably a very much of like, hey, I can either kill you or drag you into the Marines or the Coast Guard or whatever. You don't want to mess with the Coast Guard, Dadan. And she's like, oh, no, I'm not messing with the Coast Guard, okay? Or you could, like, you know, keep your paws off this village. Fuchsia Village is a safe haven from you, you know, and I guess maybe that wasn't the arrangement because Higama eventually attacked, but Higama was an idiot. So I could still see the situation of, like, even if Dadan was supposed to protect Fuchsia, you know, if Higama showed up anyway, he would be much of an, like, I don't even care about Dadan. I'm gonna go where I want. I'm gonna drink what I want. And then, you know, Shanks was there and he dealt with him, so that wasn't a big deal. But it might have been something situation like that with Garp and Dadan, okay? So slowly but surely, through a lot of shenanigans and antics, we see Dadan warm up to, you know, Luffy, Ace, and Sabo. There's another great episode where they're building their treehouse, okay, where they go into the gray terminal and they grab a bunch of scrap, and, like, pretty much the whole episode is them building a treehouse and then, you know, reminiscing or imagining themselves as pirates, you know, traveling the seven seas as the ASL pirates, the American Sign Language pirates. I need to get back into my ASL. I took a class in school. I actually have a book of it over there. I still have the ASL book. But yeah, I need to get back into that. I remember a little bit, but not very much. I can remember, like, your name is, I think that's how you ask if somebody's name is, but I could be way off. It's been several years. But anyway, so they're the ASL pirates, Ace, Sabo, Luffy, traveling the high seas, all right? And it's a very nice episode, all right, of just like them being kids and, you know, playing pretend, and imagination is great and everything. Imagination, right? So it's nighttime and they're all sleeping in their treehouse. And then Dadan kind of goes up to see, to check on them to make sure they're okay. And she's just like, you know what? They are absolute hellions when they're awake. But when they're asleep, you know, they're rather adorable. And then she walks into the treehouse. And Ace, Luffy, and Sabo have set up like a booby trap to like, you know, like a burglar system. So she walks in, and then there's like this Rube Goldberg machine that like knocks a ball down, then it hits a candle, and the candle gets lit, and the candle melts a wire, and then it drops this giant hammer that just boom hits Dadan right in the breadbasket. Like, oh, she gets knocked out of the treehouse, and it's like, my God. You know, then you realize, the only woman that could have actually survived being the mother of those 3 boys is a hardened mountain bandit. That is the only person that maybe could have actually survived the trials and tribulations of being a mother to Luffy, Ace, and Sabo. Dadan, happy Mother's Day. It's a while yet until Mother's Day, but happy Mother's Day, Dadan. Holy shit, okay? Right? The fact she did not murder those kids at some point, right? So anyway, her shining moment, though, and this is a really epic scene, after all of this crap, where she's yelling at them and screaming at them and just like, get the hell out of my house, I hate you kids, you know, like whatever. The events of Grey Terminal occur, where the nobility from the Goa Kingdom are expecting the Tenryubito St. Jalmac to arrive at their town, and they're like, okay, we have to do something about the giant pile of trash that's outside the town, right? So they decide to hire the pirates, the Blue Jam pirates, headed up by Captain Blue Jam, who, by the way, Captain Blue Jam, even watching him, like, throughout this, like, he's not like an uninteresting character. He's actually, you know, as far as pirates from the East Blue go, bounty of like 14 million. So, like, I mean, like, Buggy might not have been active at this point or anything, or maybe he might have been, but, like, it goes Arlong, and then Krieg, and then, I guess, Kuro, but Kuro was inactive, and then Buggy, and then it would have gone Blue Jam. So Blue Jam's like the next pirate down, okay? He had a bounty of like 14.3 million or something like that, right? So it's nothing to scoff at, especially in the East, right? And Blue Jam has this, you know, ragtag band of pirates. Porchemi was another one. He was rather ruthless. Like, Porchemi attacks Luffy, Sabo, and Ace, and they kind of beat him down. And then he goes back to his captain, and he has to tell them that he lost to a bunch of kids. And Blue Jam just shoots him. He just shoots him. You're just like, you're a failure. You lost to kids. Boom, you're dead, right? So Blue Jam works for the nobility, and the nobility is like, yes, Captain Blue Jam, please set these explosive charges all over the Grey Terminal to light on fire. If you do this, you will be made a noble. So, I mean, like, okay, he's kind of stupid because he's a pirate, and he's being obvious, like, oh, you'll make me a noble? Wow, that's okay, I believe you. So he falls for it. And then, of course, it was a double cross, and then after the Grey Terminal got lit up and everybody was dying, that's when the nobility, they all shut the gates, and Blue Jam was left to die as well, okay? But, you know, he takes it rather well, I guess. He's just like, well, shit, you win some, you lose some. Well, I've been double-crossed. I've been smackledorbed. Whatever, okay. So he goes after, like, Luffy and Ace. Sabo has been taken back into the high town at this point. But Luffy and Ace are still there, and he has his crew, and he's just like, you know what? Might as well kill these brats before I die, whatever. And the whole Grey Terminal is up in flames while this is happening, right? This is the scene where Ace, they're all, like, held by the pirates, and Ace uses Conqueror's Haki for the one and only time in the entire story. Conqueror's Haki, boom, and he knocks out all of the pirates except for Blue Jam, so he had a strong enough will to resist Conquerors, if nothing else. Yeah, it's interesting that Ace uses it there. Some people forget that, yeah, Ace did have Conqueror's Haki. Never uses it again. Doesn't use it at Marineford at all. Some people have said because he has, he basically wanted Whitebeard to become king of the pirates. He lost the will of a conqueror for his own. And, you know, like with the case with Luffy, he's going to be king of the pirates. Zoro wants to be the best swordsman in the world, so maybe that's why he can keep the conquerors and stuff like that. But, yeah, at any rate, that's the only time he uses it. So, Blue Jam is still, like, up, though. He's not not knocked out by the Conquerors, and he, pushes Ace down and holds him down with his foot and takes out his gun, and he's just about to just shoot Ace right in the face. And then Luffy's in the background like, no! And then, boom! Dadan and the Mountain Bandits show up. She's got this big axe, and she just attacks Blue Jam and knocks him back. And she has this awesome monologue here where the Mountain Bandits are like picking up Luffy. Like, oh, Luffy, you're so banged up. And he picks up Luffy and then gets Ace out of there. Ace gets back up, and then Dadan is there and just like it or not, I'm in charge of these boys. And a foster parent always cares for their kids. Doesn't matter if I'm their real mother or a foster mother. So no matter what, nobody hurts my boys. And like, she actually calls them my boys. And I'm like, oh my God, that's like, oh, it comes full circle. That's great. And she's there like a badass, and she's holding that axe, and she's got her whole group of Mountain Bandits behind her, and there's flames everywhere shooting up, and just like, you're not hurting my boys. So I'll tell you what, you walk away, whatever. But if you take one more step closer to us, you're a dead man. And Blue Jam, I gotta be honest with you, Blue Jam, all of his crew are knocked out at this point by Ace's Conqueror's Haki. Blue Jam's just by himself. And Dadan has an entire, like, band of thieves ready to fight him. And he's even there, and he's just like, well, I got nothing to lose. So, if nothing else, Blue Jam he looks at the situation, he's like, all right, I'm standing in a burning pile of garbage with no way out. My crew's knocked out, maybe dead, he doesn't know. And just like, now he's staring down a group of like several dozen Mountain Bandits, and he's like, you know what? Fuck it. Got nothing left to lose. Let's go. And there's this awesome moment where Dadan is like, all right then. She's like, it's like, her battle axe is like, let's dance. And it's like, you think they're gonna clash and it's gonna be this epic moment, but then Dadan is like, everybody run away! And then, because like, they're not there to fight. The place is on fire, okay? They're getting out of there, all right? They're not gonna all broil alive. So they're like, they picked up Luffy, they're getting Luffy out of there. They're like, Ace, come on, let's get the hell out of here. We were here to pick you up, not to fight pirates. The whole place is on fire. We need to make sure you guys get out of here, okay? But then Ace, this is going to be a running theme with Ace. This is going to be a theme with Ace. Ace is like, no, I'm not running away. And then he's just like, I'm going to fight Blue Jam. And so, hey, if nothing else, when Ace turned back against Akainu at Marineford, everybody brings that up. It's just like, Ace, you could have lived if you would have just kept going. You chose to stay behind. You chose to listen to Akainu's shit talk and turn around and like, you don't say that about Pops. And then he died. Ace could have lived if he just kept going. But I'll tell you what, if nothing else, Ace's character is at least consistent with this, because he did that even when he was a little kid. He was like, no, I'm not running away. I'm going to fight this guy, right? And so Dadan is like, oh my God, kid, you're going to be the death of me, seriously. Okay. All of you guys, get Luffy out of here, get back to the hideout, and Dadan stays behind to fight Blue Jam with Ace, okay? And once again, by the way, Blue Jam actually has a kind of cool line here where he's just like, an old woman and a little brat. Do you really think you could beat me? And they're like, well, we're going to try. And then, Ace is like, yeah, we're going to beat your ass. And then that's when Blue Jam is like, listen here, kid. There's only two kinds of people that survive battle. The strong and the cowardly. Bravery doesn't factor into it. And it's like, all right, I don't know how much that makes sense, but that's a cool line. It's a cool line. And so then Dadan and Ace together, like, charge Blue Jam. Ace has got his pipe. Dadan's got her giant axe. It's like, ah! And then, like, mother and son fight Blue Jam. And we don't get to see that fight, unfortunately. All we see is the aftermath. We see Ace coming out of the fire of Grey Terminal holding Dadan, and Dadan's like, but they were able to beat Blue Jam. Blue Jam is most likely dead. He was probably knocked out by them or killed straight up, and then the fires just consumed him. So yeah, he's dead here. But you know what? No, let's go full on with it. Let's say Dadan and Ace together just boom, just killed the shit out of Blue Jam. He's like, all right, boom, we killed a man. Okay, there it is. I love you, Ace. It's like, okay, I love you too, Mom. It's like, you called me Mom? He's like, yeah, whatever. It's just like, okay. So they go back home. They're upset because Sabo is apparently dead. They don't know he's alive at this point. But, they live the rest of their days in relative peace at Mount Kolbo. I say relative peace because, there's a bunch of wild animals. Luffy really did get put through the ringer with that training arc at the beginning of the series. There were giant crocodiles and birds and huge tigers, oh my, in the forest that they were fighting constantly. Mount Kolbo is a death trap. The fact that Dadan was able to, have a hideout there is kind of impressive, given all the things in that jungle that would just want you dead, all right? So anyway, they go back, and that's when, they begin to train more and more. Ace leaves when he's 17. Luffy's 14 at this point. Some other stuff happens. Actually, some stuff we just saw in Kuma's backstory, where even Kuma paid a visit to Luffy at one point. And they don't actually meet, but Kuma sees him and then he leaves. That happens when he was 16. And then when Luffy was 17, he leaves. And both when Ace and Luffy left, Dadan was just like, oh, you get out of here, you stupid kid. I don't want you around anymore. You're just going to leave me. And so Dadan ended up truly, genuinely loving Luffy, Ace, and Sabo like they were her own children. All right? So here's the thing. When we do find out about Luffy's biological mom, because I feel like we are, could be this lady, who knows, that's going to be less of a story about Luffy's mom, and think of it more of the story of Dragon's wife. Because we have seen, it's very clear, Luffy's mom, biological mother, was not around during his upbringing, okay? If that is Luffy's mom in this image that Oda drew, then she was maybe around when he was a little baby, and then she probably died, like most mothers have that disease, that dead mom disease in One Piece, right? So she's most likely dead, and she wasn't around. So it was Garp that raised Luffy from the time he was maybe like a 1-year-old, and then he was 7, and he got, he lived in Fuchsia for a time, and then he got thrown over to Dadan for his training, right? And then that's just how it went. So I don't mean this to say, to be mean, Luffy's not a nice person or something, but let's assume Luffy's mom was alive and Luffy meets her. Would Luffy care? If a woman showed up in Luffy's life and is like, Luffy, I'm your mom, would Luffy be like, Mom, I've been searching my entire life for you, and then run up and hug her? That's not gonna happen, dude. That's not even gonna happen with Dragon, and Dragon is confirmed to still be alive. If Dragon ever showed up son, dad, it's just not gonna happen, all right? It's just, that's not how Luffy is. And you know what? I'm not even gonna say this is a thing with just Luffy, all right? Look, I've had the same mom my whole life. My mom is my mom, right? But here's the thing. Let's say right now, my mom were to call me up and tell me, hey, Matthew, I have some news for you. I'm not your real mom. You were adopted or something, right? Your real mom is, I don't know, she lives in Boise, Idaho or something. I don't really think that I would sit there and be like, oh my God, my entire life is a fiction. I'd be like, no, it's okay, yeah, but and by the way, I'm 100%. You ever see a picture of me and my parents? I when I was a little kid, I would go up to my mom sometimes, and because I would be watching shows where it'd be oh, you were actually adopted, or your parents aren't really your parents, because that's a very common trope in manga and anime and stuff like that, right? So I remember I would go up to my mom every now and then and be like, Mom, are you guys really my parents? And then my mom would just look at me like, Matthew, you look exactly like your dad. You look exactly like both of us. It's very clear that you are our child. And it's yeah, okay, that's sure. Okay. So, but yeah, if that were to happen, if you were to just find out oh, by the way, I'm not really your mother, your real mother's somebody else. And I don't think I would really care. I don't think I would be oh man, I really need to find this other mother that I had. I didn't even know. I don't think I would. I don't think I would go on a wacky cross-country road trip to find my mom in Boise, Idaho or something. I think it'd be all right, well, my mother is my mother that raised me. The person that raised me through my childhood and my whole life, that's my mother. Okay, that's just how it is. Okay, and it's tackling an idea of like, what is family? Is family blood, or is it the bonds that you make with that person, right? Foster parents are just as much parents as, you know, like, just because like you were adopted or something. If that was the case, if you were adopted, your parents are still the ones that raised you. They're the ones you have the memories with. Those are your parents. Okay, at least I'm under that camp. I mean, yeah, you could look at it like biologically, but I don't think Luffy would care. And so in that regard, Luffy, his dad, I guess, is basically Garp. His grandpa was basically his dad, or the closest thing he had to a dad, like a father figure. Maybe Whoop Slap. I don't know. I mean, you could say Shanks, but Shanks was only around for like a year, so maybe you could say Shanks. But anyway, it's not even a debate, really. His mother figure is Dadan. That's the person that mainly raised him. Maybe Makino, but maybe you could look at Makino more as like an older sister type there, because she also helped raise Luffy as well. But Dadan did most of the heavy lifting. I don't think Makino had to deal with all the bullshit Dadan had to deal with, okay? I don't think Makino ever had to deal with getting hit in the chest or the stomach with a giant hammer, okay? Dadan had to deal with that crap, okay? So, yeah. But yeah, that is the story of Luffy's mom. So when we do finally we'll get a flashback with Dragon at some point, and then Luffy's biological mother, Dragon's wife, will appear in that flashback. Maybe she was a Tenryubito, maybe she was this woman, maybe she was Crocodile, who knows? But whatever that story is going to entail, the focus of that story is probably going to be Dragon and his relationship with his wife, rather than, I mean, there might be a nice scene where, like maybe similar to like in Naruto, where we have the scene with Kushina and Minato holding like a baby Naruto, like, oh, he's so adorable. Maybe we'll have a scene like that, where, you know, she'll be like, oh, look at baby Luffy. So like Oda will draw baby Luffy and be like, ooh, I'm gonna be king of the pirates. And they're like, oh, his first words, like that we'll probably see that. And we'll have some moments there, but it's just like, in the context of the timeline of the story, there's not really a lot of time for Luffy to be old enough to really register his mom as his mom. Like, he would just be a baby, okay? You know what I mean? So that'll be focused on Dragon and his wife and whatever tragedy happened therein, which, you know, there's going to be a tragedy. And there's going to be a moment where Dragon's probably going to be holding Luffy as like his wife is dead, and he's looking at Luffy and he's just like, well, hey there, kid. I gotta run a revolution, so I can't raise you. I'm just gonna give you to my dad. Okay. And then Luffy's just like, goo. Like, okay. Just like Dragon just like gives him, hey dad, here you go. He's like, what? Huh? Just like, bye. I got a revolution to run. Government's not gonna overthrow itself. I gotta go. And then Dragon's out of there, and then there's that. But it is gonna be a tragic story when we eventually get to it, okay? Yeah, you know, I like the way that Oda tackled this, you know, because I've been going back and rereading Naruto a lot recently as well. And the idea with Naruto is Naruto didn't really have a mother figure growing up. Like, he was an orphan that the whole village like hated except for like 2 people, which I need to just, I honestly, every time I think about that, I just want to do a long rant video about the way Naruto was raised and stuff, and how it makes no damn sense in the way that this was handled. So I might do that someday. I mean, if there's ever a time to do it, it's now when One Piece is on break. But at any rate, I'm going to spin the wheel after this. We'll do that. But I might do a Naruto video in there too, because I have some things to say about that. But you could look at Iruka as kind of like his big brother figure, maybe his fatherly figure, something like that. But eventually Naruto, because of the way things work in the world of Naruto with chakra and everything, he basically meets like the spirits or the vestiges of his parents. So Naruto does eventually meet Minato. He does eventually meet Kushina, and they're able to talk and actually have a dialogue. Even if it's only a brief amount of time, Naruto still does meet his parents. That's not how this works in One Piece. No, Luffy is not going to meet a spiritual ghost version of like, Luffy, I'm your mom. You know, I ate the ghost fruit. I mean, the other ghost fruit. Ooh. You know, like, that's never going to happen. Luffy's never going to meet his mom, if his mom is dead. I mean, she might still be alive. Who knows? I mean, it's not confirmed she's dead, but it's looking like she's dead. But who knows? Maybe she's not dead, but like if she is, Luffy's never going to meet a spirit of her to like, Luffy, I believe in you. It's like, and also that's just not Luffy's character, man. Luffy, the idea of Luffy like having a conversation with his mom in the same way that Naruto did, because when Naruto met Kushina, he felt this overwhelming sense of calm and just like, I've now met and spoken to my mother. This part of me that has been missing my entire life has now finally been filled, and I feel calm and at ease, and that gave Naruto just like he just dominated the Nine Tails afterwards. Okay, he just was able to win that fight because he met his mom. That is not the way that Luffy's like I met my mom and now I feel this level of calm in my life. You know, it's like, no, that's just like that's not going to happen. Okay, that's just not Luffy's character. But anyway, that's the video on Luffy's biological mother, but his real mom is Dadan. So now let us spin D wheel and then see what we're going to be talking about next. Let's look at the options here. All right, we got the wheel. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Round and around she goes. Where she stops, nobody knows. What if we got, what is this one? What if Rebecca, oh, I remember this one. What if Rebecca ate the Mera Mera Nomi? Somebody suggested that. And I sat there and thought about that for a moment. And I'm like, wait a minute. That could actually go somewhere. Because the implication is, what if Rebecca ate the Mera Mera Nomi and then joined the Revolutionary Army? So I'm like, you know what? I actually have a series of events, like a video I could make about that. Okay, Rebecca video next. See you next time, everybody. Teching signing out.